All right, welcome back to the Fantasy Football Profit Podcast. Today we're talking auction draft nomination strategy. I think that's honestly a key for everyone to know going into these auction drafts. It's not just about the players. Honestly, sometimes the players matter, but I feel like they matter sometimes less than a lot of this other stuff. We've talked about strategies. We've talked about different tips. Nominating has its own thing. Like, I really, truly believe this can help or hurt you in how you're doing your draft. And I see a lot of different stuff out there of ways people say you should do it. And to be honest, I don't agree with everybody. So I want to talk about how I think you should start a draft if you're in an auction draft. And my first point is kind of probably different than other people will tell you. And mine is, I think this is I'll say what other people say first. I think you'll hear a lot of people saying nominate players you want to get the money up that you don't want up near the top to get money off the board. And I actually really disagree with that. And I think the first thing you do in auction drafts is nominate players you want. And I've talked about this before, but my whole point to that is nominate the guys you want so you can know right away. Just get into it. You get into it right away and you know early on, do I have my guy that I set out to get in this draft? Instead of waiting around to find out and not being able to build a team, nominate who you want. If you get them, awesome. You already know, okay, I'm building the team how I want it. And if you don't, you can change up. I didn't always do it at the beginning of these auction drafts. We've been doing these for, it's like 15 years at this point. It's something I've kind of learned over time that I feel like this is truly the best way to do it. Build your team. So nominate who you want right away. I don't know. How do you feel about that one?
Yeah, I would definitely get into it early. I have definitely fallen into the trap where if I throw a guy out there and I'm trying to get money off the board, I feel like it limits my options. So I like to get right into it, and I don't mind it once you build a base, once you have it. If you're playing hero running back, you know that as soon as you have that big time running back, you can throw a lot of guys that will get money off the board. So I agree with you. I think you have to go right into it because we've also seen that early guys that get nominated usually get a break as far as how much money they go for as well. And that's really important. I'd rather play that than hope that I get a little more money off the board and eliminate one guy that's going to go for a primetime running back.
100%. I just think it's a way to do it. Like you said, though, then like once you get that base of players, that's where you switch. You get like a couple guys you want, your team's kind of built already in how you want it. Then you start nominating those top players that are still on the board that you can't spend for, and you get the big money off the board. You get those big time guys off so you don't have all these other teams in your draft with all this money when there's other mid-tier guys that you want, right? So you start doing that. You start chipping away at that. But actually, maybe even before that, another one I like to do is sometimes don't go overboard with this, but you could already have like one of your top guys you want. You can nominate a little of a lower tier player early. And it seems to be, this isn't something you go overboard with, but I've seen it where these guys, I don't know, maybe it's a 20th ranked running back, right, that you might like. And you throw them out there and they seem to go for way cheaper because everyone kind of just like, it almost like everyone kind of exhales. It's like, okay, all right, don't have to worry. Don't have this big bid anymore. And people just kind of like, I don't really, this guy's whatever. You're going to have a lot less people liking maybe a guy in that range. And like the top guys, everyone loves. Mm-hmm. But I've seen it so often where that mid-tier guy goes for so much cheaper than they should. I've seen it year after year after year. It happens where you go back and look at the drafts. You're like, wait a second, why did this guy go for $5? And later on, the guys in that same tier, when you get towards the end, are going for 15, 20 sometimes.
Yeah.
I'd love doing that. Not overboard with it, but just throw it out there once.
And I would, the only thing I would say, the caveat with that is I wouldn't do it to someone that's shooting up the boards. So if people feel like you're trying to get a deal on it, and you never know, someone might be in love with the same player. So even though I agree with you, I think that there's a certain type of player that that is steady and true and you just want on your team and you're willing to pay like price for it, then throw him out and you might get a deal for him.
I'll throw out a name right now. Tell me if you think this would work. David Montgomery.
Yes.
That's the kind of player, right? Where it's not, you don't have a lot of people in love with David Montgomery, but you know what? I think he's probably going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
And he's the thing is he's already undervalued, I think, for what he will perform. And he just doesn't have any of that like interest where you throw out a guy like that, you could get him for dirt cheap. Because I think a lot of people aren't going to be that interested. That's the kind of guy.
And I'll tell you the guy that I wouldn't do it with, someone like Anthony Richardson.
Right. Yeah.
Where everyone's kind of like,
100%.
QB is not off the board yet, and you're kind of like, well, the big guys are still up there, but you will have one other guy that's like, that was my guy, and I'm going for him.
Yep. So don't go overboard with it, but yeah, I like to do that. And just another one when you're nominating, especially when you're getting towards maybe like you've spent a lot of money and you're trying to get more money off the board, let's say, because you want to get other players. Look at other teams' budgets. Look at their rosters. Know who they need. Maybe they have no running backs. I've seen it happen where they didn't do anything and there's like one or two okay players left, and maybe you don't need them. You already got your running back short up. Throw those guys out. Get that money off the board. I like to do that too, and just kind of watch. And then the other one, I think really the last point I want to talk about is kind of like one of them is defenses. This is a thing that I feel like it's a hard one to figure out. I think it's either if there's a defense you actually like. You go into the draft, you want somebody. I would say never nominate them. You wait till somebody else nominates them and then take them from them. I kind of like doing that because if it's a defense you really like, you might want them for $2, $3. I think you go wait for somebody else to nominate and then steal them because I don't think they didn't really bid you up on that. Right. I like to do that. That's how I like to do that. And then what about how do you handle end of draft guys you like? That you might have only $1 or $2. Maybe you have like a max bid of 2 or 3. Okay. How do you handle the end of draft type?
That is the interesting one. So I'll start if I have a little money left, right? So if I have maybe a couple slots left and I know that I have like $4 left, I have $2 for it. If I really like it, first of all, number one is see who else has what position left. Is it all bench? Is there 5 guys left and they only have $1? Then I'm hitting the first guy I would want the most with $2 nomination. And I'm probably doing that even if I know that one guy can outbid me or 2 guys can outbid me. I throw it out and you just kind of have to hope because that would be one way to do it. I think I would rather do that because I know, and then I can plan accordingly because there will be another guy. Or, someone throws someone out there and then you can bid the second dollar and then grab them. But, the question is, if you only have $1 left and there's a couple of guys out there, do you wait on a guy and hope he doesn't get nominated, or you just throw him out there knowing that there is a good chance that your buddy is going to scoop him up for $2? Which way do you handle that one? Do you risk it or do you go for it?
It depends. Okay, it depends on, I guess, where you're at. And if you have no other choice, sometimes you have no other choice,
right? To
at least just try it, right? But if you can't spend more than $1 and you just gotta take the chance. Yeah. Like if you have $1 bid left and there's a guy you just gotta, like, you're not gonna get him if someone else does it. So just take a chance at it. And that's pretty much, I'll say all towards the end too, if you're down to like $1 bid type thing, even that type of draft, make sure you're only putting people out there that you actually do want on your team.
Yeah.
Because I've seen that happen where people might think somebody will bid somebody up on something, but if it's getting later, they might not.
Yep.
So make sure you actually want that guy in your team. And then I think in the whole process towards the end is make sure you have a list of, like, you queued up your guys that you actually do like. Because all of a sudden, sometimes those nominations can get quick, especially in this auction draft where it gets down to like no money. It's like a snake draft, but snake draft just like the fastest snake draft we've ever seen. Instead of a minute and a half, you get 20 seconds maybe. Mm-hmm. It becomes a snake draft, but you have 20 seconds. It's crazy. Make sure your players are queued. I've seen so many times people end up with just junk that they didn't want, and you actually probably missed out on some great guys for $1. So
without a doubt. And I think what it really comes down to, whether it's in the beginning or the end of the draft, I think I've become much more I think it's a better process to just be very, very straightforward with the people you want and be much more. I'm not saying that you always have to throw out the guy that you want the most, even when you can't afford him. But I think to be very forward thinking and saying, I'm going to try to get the guys I want. And if I don't get them, then so be it. I can move on to the next one. But
I think being aggressive is it. I think there's too many people that get scared in auction drafts, especially if you're drafting with people that are relatively new to it. Being aggressive can just crush the other people. Like, they might not know what to do.
Yeah.
We have a harder time in some of our leagues that have been established where people, I think, have gotten more aggressive over the years. But if you're in a relatively new league, I think being aggressive can really help you.
Yep, without a doubt. And I think if you're realistic with tiers, like we talk about, and you're realistic with how much these players are going to go for, you're not always looking for the deal, then you won't be shocked and you won't be scared away. Yep. And I think that's the biggest one. That when you're 30 people in and you haven't gotten a guy yet because you think that no one's a deal, that is the worst feeling to be.
Yep. So, all right, there we go. There's auction draft nomination strategy. Talk to you guys next time.